Thank you for tuning in to the Natty News Daily podcast. This episode is brought to you in part by our sponsor, Core Nutritionals. You can check out corenutritionals.com for all your supplement needs and use code Natty News Daily at checkout to save 20%. Enjoy the episode.
Alrighty, guys. Welcome back to the Natty News Daily podcast. I'm doing the intro today because James wanted to have some entertainment. We're here with Silas Stephens. Silas, welcome to the show.
Howdy, how you doing?
Good, how about you, man?
Good, making it, man. A few days
Getting
out.
a little bit of a diet face and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, waiting on it. You know, we're at a all-time low right now, so we're just kind of cooking. We're just kind of waiting. So he's going to keep me low, and then we'll feed up and see how we're doing.
But that's Phil Ricardo, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Sweet. So before we get into your current prep, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background? We talked a little bit off air before this about where you turned pro, how you've kind of transitioned your focus in terms of organizations and also categories too. So why don't you give the rundown and we'll talk from there.
All right. So, I started bodybuilding. I played baseball for 17 years and I was playing collegiately. And, my pops was kind of like a lower level pro player. And so, he really pushed the baseball part and he enjoyed it. But for me, I just liked hitting. And so it got to the point where I had a terrible first experience. I actually was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And my whole thing with that kind of got ruined by, just what was going on. And so I didn't really care for it. And I didn't really have like a huge love for it. The gym became kind of like my safe place. Well, fast forward, that's really all I cared about. There's this other college that wanted me to come down back home into Georgia and play. And so I did just because I liked the coach. But to me, it was practice will get in the way of training, not vice versa. So I already knew where my heart was. And so, by the time my dad said, "Hey, I'll cover your gym membership if you just practice." Well, I was like maybe hitting in the cage once a week and I was training like 6. So, I was weird back then. I was nuts. I was like 260, 270, before my first show, I was drinking like a gallon of milk a day. I was just training my butt off, just doing whatever I could do. I didn't really know anything. And so, I thought every single person who was a competitor was like a demigod. I was like, I just wanted to talk, because I was obsessed with it. And after one semester, that coach said that he was transferring. I said, "All right, I'm done." So I set my eyes on my first show, and it was a organization.
What year was that?
Called 2016.
Okay.
And there was an organization down here called the SNBF.
I think I've seen them. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're small, and I've seen a couple good pros in it, but I didn't know any better, and so I did that show. I was the only one in my class. You know how that goes, and so then competed in the overall against like 2 other guys. It was small, but had a good time, and I was addicted to it, obsessed with it, kept going, and so. Then my journey was to find, okay, well, what's the largest organization? And, originally a promoter at the time told me, well, WNBF is it. That's the way to go. And there was also PNBA, but she said, they're real like international all over the place. So, oh, okay, well, whatever. So I went for, I think this was during the time Classic Physique was kicking up, not really like blown up, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it wasn't well defined, like the criteria and whatnot either.
Yeah, so after I did a local show down here for fun, it was a thing with my gym, Stacks Gym. It was like a team show we did, and then after that, I did my first WNBF show, and so didn't get the overall for that one, and so then I had a coach then proceeding for the next year for the next show. I redid the same WNBF show, and then that's the one I turned pro at. And that was 2000.
Which show was that?
It was the Augusta Grand Prix. down here. It was a show that I don't know if it's still going on. I think it is. I'm not sure, just because I know the promoters, and they, one left and the other kind of stayed, I think. But turned pro in that, and that was awesome. That was a dream come true for me, because that's all I wanted. And at the time, being a lot smaller and less developed, I was like, I don't even know if I have what it takes to go pro or not, but I don't care. I'm going to do it somehow. And just because, I'm really competitive in that aspect, but, I, I guess. And after that, then I was getting ready for my debuts, but then, the all scared COVID hit, and all shows were canceled. So I did kind of like a fake prep. I prepped all the way down almost, and then everything was canceled. And then now we go to 2021.
When did you
And
shut down your 2020 prep?
probably June, July.
June. Okay. So you hung on for a good bit then, just to see if something. Yeah. Not
I
too
was
long,
in prep.
but yeah.
No, I was in prep probably for, I don't know, maybe 5 months. I'm not sure. Then when 2021 came around, then it was like, okay, go time again. Everybody's back up and running. So I wanted to do the pro debut, and I understand that, like, COVID hit still everyone hard, and it was hard still trying to get out of everything. And so I picked, out of convenience, the, what was it called? It's the WBF Pro Show that Connecticut has. I don't remember the name of it, but it was it wasn't the same venue as the years before the pandemic. And when I got there, it was like a really run down, like, elementary school slash church or something. And so the lighting was so rough, and it was only me and one other pro there, where they had to rotate us twice. We did like double, like it was either like double the amount of mandatories we were supposed to do, because they couldn't see straight because the lights were facing up. And with the lighting angles, they're not supposed to be facing up.
That's
You
opposite
know,
direction.
like I'm saying, like, the floors, the venue, like it was like, it looked like it was uninhabited. And so the lights shining up, it was like you couldn't see any lines whatsoever. And so that show was fun for me. Not the, I would say the experience at the show was not great, but what my ideas were for that show were great. I just wish that I could have had a better platform to have performed it on. Just because with, like, my character, kind of what I portray off Instagram, kind of just my fantasy mindset, I did a Godzilla theme for that show. And so
Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So the let's see. Typically, sort of on the side, my character, I do Retro Lord, which is just basically me. I'm pretty much the same. Is like a, because I want to branch out with it, with branding, writing and stuff, but it's like a time deity that can go to any point in time and be whatever type of warrior he wants, which I can use that to then branch off different topics of clothing or material, entertainment, whatnot. And so the theme for that was a mix of Mortal Kombat and Godzilla. So off of one of the video games, you have like Shao Kahn or Koro Kahn, and I called myself Kaiju Kahn because Godzilla's a kaiju, and I called myself ruler of Outworld. So what I did was I got these reptilian contacts and I wore them, and I had the Godzilla theme song, and I had these like almost dragon scale like posing trunks that I had custom made from, I think it's called BB Custom Suits, something like that. They're out of, I think, New York. But I don't think the lady does menswear anymore. I think she just does bikini. So she's also the one who made my Classic Physique trunks, and the ones I'm still wearing, because I mean they were like made to fit. So that was fun. And Mr. America obviously was booming and blowing up that year to get ready to be put on. And then I ran through with Mr. America. And then after that was a very long off season. So And then
No, I love
so
the fact that it's not just like you do a posing routine, like you build this whole like aura and like persona and everything like that. Because I mean, one of the biggest criticisms, you see some like fantastic pros that just don't put any effort into the routine, and they're like, there's no personality, and it's just their snapshot on Instagram pretty much, right? Like that's what they're going to be remembered for versus like if you go out there and you put on a real performance and a display, like there's those films and those memories are going to be like passed around for everybody, right? Like that's the fun of the sport, really.
yeah, and I think that the sport is very dull in areas. Not, I mean, you have people saying, bodybuilding's boring. I mean, yeah, if you're a third person. I mean, to me, it's a blast. I know to everyone else, it's a blast that competes and does it or coaches, whatever. And so, you know, to me, it's like, okay, on my side of things, just because kind of my philosophy with like, nutrition, training, dieting is kind of a little unorthodox. And so some people don't agree with me, or I kind of throw them off, or I kind of make people nervous sometimes. I can get to that in a little while. But the, you know, bodybuilding was fun long ago when it was blasted on TV. The Olympia, the IFBB has all the eyes, all the ears. And then imagine if you're a pro that has like 10,000 followers, and then let's say you're doing something crazy and funky, you post content, it blows up, boom, boom, boom. So there's so much media coverage for them. And, with this page, it's amazing because I've been following it since it started. And I was like, thank God, there's something that drug-free community can have. And I know there's a few other pages pops up. I know there was that partnership with Generation Iron and PNBA. I don't know much about that, but you know, I feel like especially the drug-free community, because if you talk about the IFBB, you can just name several big personalities with different characters. Like Kai Green, for example. The only other person I knew that wore contacts and did this crazy weird stuff on stage, but everyone loved it. Versus your average guy walking up, looks phenomenal, but just poses, hits his poses, does that. To me, to get people more interested is, why not give them an actual show? Like, don't look like the same dude with the same haircut before you. Don't do the same stuff, because like I like the WWE and all that stuff, all the crazy eccentric personalities, almost acting. So it's like, for me, it's like, yeah, I'm going to pose. I'm going to pose well and do my best. But at the same time, I want them to feel like they're watching a movie and the boss battle just started or something like that. So to me, that can draw people in. And so typically what I'll do is I'll kind of connect a theme with the show I'm doing. And typically it might be something you've already been familiar with or seen, but I kind of put my twist on it. Like, if I would have placed top 5 at last Mr. America a couple years ago, which there was a big reason I know personally why I didn't, and I accepted. But I had planned for like this, it was what I think I called myself the American Mustang, not the Italian Stallion. If you kind of get where I'm going, it was kind of more like it was a blood sport type vibe I had. I had the whole Kumite jacket and stuff, and so that was going to be fun. But I have a lot of like reasons why I'm doing Mr. America again stuff. Because like, one, to me, I mean, I think it's just the Super Bowl of natural bodybuilding, and I think it's growing just for the fact that, like, every big show, every big federation has their crown king show, but this is the one that says, everyone come, we revive this old show, this is the dominant title, come get it. And I mean, the year I went, good night, it was stacked. I mean, holy crap, there was, I think, 13 or 14 guys in one class, and I was like, yep, these are the pros. All right. Yep. So I had forgive me, I'll probably go on a bunch of bunny trails, but I had a brutal mess up on my end. And so typically I've kind of learned just through, the different coaches I've had. One, I learned what weight range I actually need to be in for me to be peeled to the bone. Not what I think. Just because the gym I go to typically is not a lot of drug-free people, or you got a lot of the boomers or guys saying, no, well, you need to hop on this. You will one day. You will one day. You'll get tired. But I'm like, yeah, okay. And so they typically what's said, through, myth talk is, oh, the next year after an off season, your stage weight needs to be heavier. Well, especially this year, and I mean, I technically knew it, but weight, it's irrelevant with drug-free bodybuilding. It just is. I hit a low of 212 4 years ago after I turned pro. My current coach then was giving me a reverse diet, not a recovery. And me personally, being drug-free, I think I needed a recovery diet to put some quick fat on me because I was dying. I spent a lot of time growing, so I know I've gained a lot of tissue, but I hit 212 Saturday, and I was kind of freaking out. I was like, yeah, I'm peeled. Coach like, you're peeled. Good job. I was like, I thought I was losing my mind, my body. I thought I was shedding muscle, but then I stopped, as he was giving me the refeed of, some clean sources. I sat there and I watched throughout the day with, sodium, carbs, water. And my weight would fluctuate like 6, 7, 8 pounds. And I said, okay, so I had to get peeled to this level to be in money shot range for when we do refeed for the show. So I understood, and I was like, okay. So for my pro debut in Mr. America a couple years ago, I was not even close to this weight. I was about 10 pounds heavier. And for me personally, how I'm wired is my quads don't come out unless I get below 220 into the teens and actually dig. If I'm above 220, which I kept thinking I was supposed to be, they don't. My quads carry water, and I'm jealous of every person whose quads come out first. Because my upper body would get drained and peeled first. Now I'm looking at my quads like they don't come out. So, I at Mr. America was, me and my wife wanted to walk on the beach some, and and during that time with my pro card and men's open for WNBF, I was seeing if I could transfer to Classic, and Mark graciously allowed me to do that, and I was like, okay, dope. And so then I was getting ready for that, and I walked a lot, and that's part of where my mess up came in at. However, my legs they were leaving every check-in I sent to my coach because I inflamed them from walking so much. And I didn't know. I didn't pay attention to it. Everything else was on key and on point. I was trying to get the water out of my body. I was legit naked in front of a wood fire stove with all the burners on, trying to just flex the water out of my body. And, and then especially
that might have just made things worse.
Yeah. My coach had some wild tactics then too. So, but I think also because he coached Olympians, IFBB, NPC, I think that sometimes coaches who are so used to working with athletes that are enhanced, I think might not know how to completely hone in someone drug-free. And I'm very blessed to have Ricardo as my coach now, which luckily is because I met him at Mr. America. And then my last coach became ill, and he had to stop coaching, so I had to look around for coaches. And so I remember meeting Ricardo. I saw he coached Derek Joe, and so I reached out. I was like, hey, and he was open to it and said, yeah, man, I really like your style. You seem motivating, and I think I'd take you on. So it's been me and him ever since. But I think the biggest thing was that morning at Mr. America, I got in my head really bad for the first time, like my whole career. I saw everyone dropping their pants, and I saw all these quads everywhere, and I sat there and I got nervous. I said, something doesn't feel right with me. Something doesn't feel right. I need to go look at my quads. And my wife's like, well, don't go look. Don't, stop worrying. I stormed off to the bathroom across the hall, and they were gone. I mean, completely gone. I mean, I had cylinders for legs. I was like, okay. And so I freaked out. I kept stressing out. And even my rectors were in before all of this was happening. And the pics on stage just depressing. My lower back completely disappeared. It looks like I had love handles that were full of water. My coach looked at the photos and stuff. He goes, "This is the worst cortisol spike in an athlete I've ever seen." And so, huge learning lesson. Huge learning lesson. So I've never lived it down, and so that's why I've been so motivated to come back. I took a 2-year off season. I trained my butt off. I did some powerlifting with my wife and the team we have at the gym, and then I had a really bad injury getting ready for my first meet. Um, Y'all might remember, might not, but I was under the squat bar and they were trying to get me to a 600 squat, and I ruptured my L4, L5, and bulged my L5S1 all in one wham. And so I had to go to the emergency room or whatever the other one was, because I think the emergency room was too long or closed or something. But yeah, I was in bed for a week, so I had to recover from that. And I learned a lot of different ways that I could work on those parts, because I used to be someone like a big fan of the big three lifts, bench, squat, and dead. And, I still am, but I learned there's a lot of ways to get around it and not have to bother those same body parts again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Man, yeah, that's a recurring theme, unfortunately, right? Yeah, I love them myself, but yeah, I have beat myself up to it with them to the nth degree where I just don't really do it all that much anymore for similar reasons. Not as big of an injury, but just the accumulation of a lot of small injuries, and it's almost like a recurring theme. You feel good, you get load up the bar for a deadlift, you don't feel good anymore.
yeah,
At least for me.
yeah. And I had to be realistic too, because I'm one of my nicknames is the Kraken, because I water cut powerlifters for their meets, and I enjoy doing that more than I would coaching someone for a show personally. I love powerlifting meets. I mean, I love them. My wife was internationally elite in the USPA, and she was doing really well. We had a lot of people in that league until all that drama started. But water cut. I've water cut, I think 10 or 11 meets, I think, but they're fun to go to. I've done 2, but for me, I am accepting of my proportions and my leverage. And obviously, it took an injury to learn that. But typically for me and my height, yes, I'm naturally strong, but the deadlift, my arms are actually short. That's why I think I'm actually half okay at bodybuilding. They're not long and lanky for being like, 6'4", 6'5" as I am. And my squat isn't bad, but I have a long torso. So typically I have too much bend and pressure on my spine when I'm going down. Bench is fine, but that's pretty much it. But, powerlifting, you need all 3 of them. And so I learned, I said, okay, and they all helped. I still did them. I still did those 2 meets after my injury. I've been careful with squat. I think I got back up to where, during just regular training, I think I did 515 for a set of 5 or something, but I'll feel that one area from the injury and I'll just feel it. And I'm like, no, that's it. No, I'm just going to take a break, because regardless, sometimes if I move a certain way when I'm doing a leg movement, like a press or squat, Smith, whatever, I had felt something similar. So I'm like, okay, I need to figure out ways I can still hit all these things, and I'll throw about squat, because one, I mean, if you're in the powerlifting world, it makes sense. But sadly, all of us growing up, for the bros in the gym, it's always like, what's your squat, what you did, what's your bench. They never ask, what's your incline dumbbell? What's your hack squat? They don't ask the stuff that's actually really hard and people don't think about, So I started shooting towards those in my off season, which really benefited me. I really enjoyed those exercises. But yeah, I just think that those 3 movements are pushed way too much.
There's certainly a trend away from it nowadays, I'd see, at least in the younger generation. Almost to a fault, maybe, and that's a discussion our group has had multiple different times, right? Like, there's a happy medium. Everything doesn't have to be cables and cuffs. Everything also doesn't have to be barbells, right? Like, you can mix and match, but for sure.
Yeah, I think it also really, pertains to the how that person is wired too, how they're built, because typically a lot of people make up an exercise plan. I mean, hell, I've done it too. And, you get someone say, okay, do this, but really it's like what feels best for the person training with it, so like, I've done RIR training, I've done RPE, and so typically me, I take joy in training myself now since after my last coach had his illness. And so, not that anyone else's training is great. And so I really, it's kind of like thinking to myself, like, okay, I know enough, I know how to do it. But my training is kind of, I call it real field training, because you'll see some coaches prepare clients. It's like, okay, well, you're doing this much RR this week, this much this week, and you're kind of tailoring the fatigue levels. And for me, it's like, okay, do I feel good? Okay, this is the range I'm trying to hit today. Let's hit it. If not, it doesn't mean I failed or, this, you got to think all different factors. I work a blue collar job outside. So it's like, okay, has work affected? Am I too tired? How's my food like? What I do the night before. So, I've kind of watched some stuff from, it's kind of a mix between, I would say, kind of old school training, but at the same time, I really listen to stuff that Jordan Peters taught with, like he believes in failure. He believes in back offsets, but yeah, at the same time, it's like, he said, there's no incorrect training program. Technically, he said, do what's best for you. And so I paid attention to that. So it's like I made my schedule, and if something was too sore, it meant, okay, reduce volume, or either move it around because one day is too close to the next day. And so I had an odd split where I was doing, I think it was like a push pull off legs, arms, because I feel like I always need to grow them more off, and it was push pull legs off, and that was the whole cycle, because on some day, I've done 3 days on, 2 days off, people's done 4 on, 1 off, all that stuff. I used to be doing the bro split where it was like, 5 days a week, weekend off, so still trying to find my way through all that and learning, because for me it's like I'm not too much on the scientific side of it, yet I acknowledge it. I acknowledge the benefits from it, but yet not too much where it's the ignorant, mess yourself up in the gym side where it's like, go hard, doesn't matter, this.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it sounds like you auto-regulate a lot, a little bit more fluid than most people, but I think that's a smart way to do it, especially if you are someone that, the work fatigue is a factor for you, which for most people nowadays really isn't, or at least a lot of the people that are doing what we do.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I was doing the RR back when I was actually moving houses the year. I was moving houses during the prep I turned pro on. I was on a unholy amount of caffeine, but I was glad to know that common thing for high stimulant use with other competitors, but for me, a couple days, I was like, okay, I need to cut back a little. My only regret is, even for this prep, caffeine intake is high, just because one, it's like, well, if I had an inside job, I would not be consuming near as much.
Mhm.
But like, if my carbs are gone and pretty much all my fat's gone or whatever's left, and I can't have food except for this and that, what's going to fuel me? This meal will fuel me for maybe a couple hours and decimate, and I'm going to shut down. So caffeine. And so typically, I think my regret would be that I didn't lower my dosages in the off season, bleeding in the prep.
What are you
I
what are
would.
you at on average right now?
Oh man. So I would say right now I'm between 600 on a low day to a gram and some change on a bad day.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's so caffeine's been a problem for me for probably all my career. Um,
You keep White Monster in business, or Monster in business.
I know. It's great. Something I do take a lot of joy in was, I believe, back when Bang first started coming out with drinks, and I think it was like once Ray's started letting a few loose, I actually started, and it doesn't matter what y'all see on TikTok, what you see on the internet. I've been doing caffeine reviews on energy drinks since like 2017, since like it all started. But I never had a big enough profile where no one knew about me. People thought they were funny and hilarious, and so I did. And I was never even serious. I mean, I would just blanter BS out my mouth, like just word garbage. Like I would start rapping or something, or squealing, or a stupid skit. You know, one time when I was running around the room, it was silly stuff. You know, I enjoyed them.
All right, so we are back talking caffeine reviews.
Yeah. So, you know, I was doing those, and I would put them in highlights on my Instagram. But, you know, when you have like a cluster of highlights of like, you know, 20 something full complete highlights of hours and hours and hours, I was like, there's no point in this. And so I took them all down. And then, because no one not really.
Were they on your stories?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm on my stories. I mean, I just got jiggy with it. I would put GIFs on there and all that. But it was, eventually there came that point where you saw I started making them as reels. But my life was so busy. I was getting ready for my wedding, and, you know, the powerlifting meets and stuff like that. I was like, I don't have time for it right now. Then once prep it, I really just have not given a crap about doing them.
Do you have the old ones saved?
I have some old ones. I actually have a couple really old ones.
You should just post them. You already have them. Just post it without a caption. No caption needed.
I could. I have a couple really old ones on YouTube. I tried starting a YouTube years ago. It's just having to get started. Like, you know, I've had a few reels blow up. It was like, you know, be nice, but really just the main thing is like to have my like fancy little character world I created, because I do actually live in it myself. You know, it's not like an act, you know, like I truly like act like this, I dress like this just because I enjoy it. And, you know, it gives entertainment to others, just because typically I can be a huge extrovert, and, you know, people like that. So, you know, versus saying, you know, most typical, because I really don't like trends. So, for example, I was a huge Bumstead fan until he blew up. When he blew up, I was like, no, you know, and it's, you know, for me, I'm not too fond of like the basic brands and clothing and stuff where it's all bland, you know, the oversized gym shirt that's like khaki. I can't do it. So I have to be stupid, make stuff like this, you know, like I'm real eccentric. So if I can look like, you know, like Hulk Hogan and, you know, Ric Flair had a kid, then I'm doing my job right. So
there's our soundbite for the video.
yeah. Because I mean, gives the vibe to a show when you show up. You know, back when you look at the old school days, you know, guys showed up in suits that looked like cardboard boxes on them. You know, it was like they showed up, they looked their own way, they dressed their own way, they acted their own way. Now it's just kind of like, you know, everybody comes in like their own little thing, their own little tracksuit, whatever. But it's like, you know, imagine trying to, which I also think drug-free shows, especially Mr. Becker, should have like press conference meetings. I think that would be super cool. You know, to have a little bit of banter, have a little bit of talk, you know, chatter it up, because one, that would lighten the mood. Two, you can actually have people show off their personalities a little bit more, because I think so many times things can be treated like just a regular show. You have your people show up, they get their tan, they get on stage. That's pretty much it, you know? And so, you know, have some, you know, like some charisma, some little bit of acting in there. I don't mean legitimate rehearsed lines, but you get my gist of where I'm going, you know? Like if I think, you know, I feel like, you know, just for example, people like Juju Mufu and stuff like that, you know, Larry Wills, you got all these crazy personalities on the enhanced side, but you don't have that many on the drug-free side. My next door neighbor is, I don't know if y'all follow WWE, but he's NXT champion right now. And then one of my best friends who was in my wedding does a lot of the wrestling around the area. And so I practiced once. Okay. I would love to have done it, but I love bodybuilding more. And also think the bodybuilding world needs more personality, like fictional personality, like they do in WWE. So I want to help be that. And I felt wrestling has already enough and an overflow of it. So, but also I woke up like my neck was so stiff just from one practice. It was ridiculous. You cannot do bodybuilding and even attempt to wrestle in a ring at the same time. I can tell you that. You cannot. You cannot. They conflict way too hard. It's painful. So I chose to, stick with natural bodybuilding. But I just think, a little bit of spice and stuff I think would help liven the community up, And I think, with these media outlets we have, I think if we connect other people on similar ideas, I think stuff could really blow up, because I see a lot of the podcast culture and stuff is popping up and I think it's great, But I think really if they kind of somehow can show off the competitors' characters at like pinnacle shows, for example, I think just stuff would be a little bit more centered and focused versus just, you don't want to just blend into the crowd type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Nice. No, I love it. I would love to see that, right? You're absolutely right. There's so many shows out now. I mean, there's a show every single weekend come, a certain time of the year, and multiple shows every weekend. But what makes one show different than the other, right? And that's on the promoters too, as well as the athletes, right? Like the promoters need to make it a spectacle as well as the athletes. So yeah, I think the sport as a whole can do more than what we're doing than, like you kind of hinted, right? Like a rundown high school with some lights and that's it, right? Do a little bit more, invest a little bit more money into it, make it something that people want to actually come to, right? Not just friends and family. Bring people off the streets. Like, what is this? I think make it a spectacle, like you said, would be great.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I have a lot of friends who are in NPC, and not dogging on anyone. NPC, almost every single show they have looks great. I'm talking with whatever form of advertisement, decoration, marketing, whatever they've done, they have marketed the show. It's been marketed. They have all the details out. They have everything showing off, whether it's a humongous projection screen that's in the auditorium or whether it's the biggest banners and they brought a lot of vendors. I know there's more money circulating and more tools, but I think that the route with Mr. America is well on its way. I think one, it stands out more than I think most NPC shows. Now, I wasn't there last year, but it looked phenomenal. I was so jealous. I saw it there. I was like, whoa. And then when I saw Tom Platz was there, I was like, dude, this is crazy. So, super excited for it because it looks like it's going to be something mimicking the Arnold. And that's something I'm super excited for.
Yeah, they're putting together a big expo. They had an expo last year, but they're expanding it even more into the actual convention center now. So, yeah.
Yeah, vendors, merch, apparel, a little bit of shopping, different events, that's going to attract, all the people who, would see a small town bodybuilding show and be like, because like, I think if the promoters put on excellent marketing with, lights, really truly trying to make it look good for the athletes, I think it'll attract more because, what are we doing most time nowadays? Social media and advertisement ourselves. We're advertising our own bodies, what we're doing. So if you have myself and I post a picture and it is at it's the Xbox and it looks like I'm at little Timmy's middle school, no one's going to care, but versus, with the pictures from Mr. America and it's like, oh, wow, that's sick. That looks really cool. I want to go to it, So I think that really, it really did set the standard. I know we have other leagues where the shows is great. WNBF Worlds, I've always seen it pop off. PNBA Natural Olympia, I've seen it pop off. And like the PNBA Universe World Championships, I mean, just the diversity of people have brought in, how many people have brought in. I think it's great. And, I tell you, for me personally, I remember, I think you said at the beginning of the conversation, so I'm going to get to it, is my branch off from WNBF, because Classic became so big. One, I understand my height and my proportions. I'm not beating a guy that's 5'5", 190 pounds. I'm in men's open bodybuilding. something that WNBF will say, which, to each their own, but they say that, well, natural bodybuilding is classic. I say, well, technically, if you compare it to NPC classic, yeah, most open guys can look semi-classic, but you still have guys genetically who are geared towards a more classic physique. You still have guys geared genetically towards men's open. My buddy and my teammate under Ricardo, also my coworker, he looks like a bodybuilder through and through. He looks amazing. He did an NPC show, and I think he's going to try and pick out something drug free sometime. He's still young. He's 19. He's got plenty of time, but he looks phenomenal. And I looked at him and said, dude, you will go pro in whatever drug free league you pick, give or take maybe a year and some change and whatnot. But I'd say that maybe even sooner. I mean, one, look who's coaching him. Ricardo is, and two, he came in peeled. He's phenomenal. His name's Wes Kane. He looked awesome. So I just think, there's several people. You got Meshack that won. The man looks amazing. And he don't look classic at all. He looks like a purebred men's open bodybuilder. So I said, okay, what league, to me, from what I see, has the best classic physique? And so, Ricardo started with PNBA, so that was a little bit of leverage. So I was like, okay, well, I looked at both, and I was like, okay, which one looks like? I guess for me, because I like all the colors and promoting, I saw that the PNBA had Iron Man magazine, Generation Iron, and all this stuff. And it looks like they're actually growing even more than what they were. And the only problem is like some crossovers to a couple other leagues because, it's this sad little politic game where not every league will allow this one pro from this league to come in, which I can't stand that. I wish we were all just one big happy family, but, there's too many regulations about the drug testing, So, but yeah, so my plan this year was to obviously return to Mr. America and look different. And I believe we're going to achieve that because your boy ain't stressing out and your boy ain't going to walk at all. I'm never going to walk again. I mean, it was awful, but I have to have a qualifier done to qualify for the Natural Olympia as well. And I was like, okay, considering, I've been a pro for a little bit, but kind of how that thing goes, when you turn pro, you're back at the bottom of the barrel, and it took, I think, my mess up at Mr. America to realize that is you're back at the bottom of the barrel. It doesn't matter. No one really knows who I am, sure, people can follow you or this guy, or whatnot, but I've not been around a lot of large faces on stage. One, because maybe the shows I picked out, and, due to, whatever was going on or, to just, I only did 2 pro shows. So I still have a lot of time. And so I was like, okay, what are the best ways I can get my face in front of all the right people so they know who I am for this, And so Mr. America, obviously, it's a given. It's a beautiful show. This first show that's been promoted, they said that some officials from PNBA will be there. It's going to be the qualifier. And I'm really looking forward to that. I love meeting new people and however I can in whichever way, and then go to the Natural Olympia. And so, and I know just getting my face in front of as many people as possible, because, it's almost like you're brand new at everything again. And so, I'm coming back this year more prepared. And typically for me, I believe out of everything, I beat myself up the most for my mistake with the water issue that I explained earlier. It really, really bothered me because I knew I had the potential to do better. But because I stressed, which that's all in your own head, whether prep brain or not, like prep gives you the great influence to react quickly to a lot of different things, whether it be irritability or whatnot, but you have that choice. You have that choice to stress out, Tori, or you just flick the switch off and say no, but I think also in a way, this is something I've described to my friends and teammates before, is like, you're born, you're a baby. Years pass, you're an adult. what happens with that, no matter, regardless of how it is, it's maturity, mental maturity. I see it as when you originally start competing, no matter what age you are, you're like a child, you're a baby. All right, with your
Mhm.
mentality, with your maturity levels, it don't matter how hard you are, everything's brand new. You're gonna experience it brand new. You don't know what you're doing, or you might, it doesn't matter, because your own little realm inside your head, you still have to figure out how to get through it yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and then I would say as years progress, you mature, learn from your mistakes, just like real life, and you become accustomed to how you should approach it in different ways. So I would say also that my mental status of how I'm approaching, and coach really helped me out with that one also this year, about how I'm approaching all the shows. And so, I think you have to get to a point where you're at peace no matter how you perform.
Mhm.
Um, if it's a mistake you made, you have to own up to it and move forward with it. Because I do the sport because I love it, but I'm real competitive, and I don't care how long it takes me. I don't care how many years it takes me. I ain't saying this year. I ain't saying next year. Whenever I can, I want to win these titles. I don't know how long it'll take me. Am I built for it? Who knows? We'll have to find out. But it's I'll keep going till I fall face flat to the floor. I mean, I love the sport, and I love drug free bodybuilding. I think it's great. I think it's something that everyone sleeps on, and sometimes I think me being a little wacko sometimes can drag more attention to it. Sometimes I get blasted for like, man, you won't be drug free forever. I'm like, yeah, I will. I don't even want to hop on TRT when I'm older. I said, there's plenty of natural ways you can do it. Did they do it 200 years ago? No, they didn't. They still looked like men to me. So there's plenty of ways to go about it. I mean, so I'll go ahead and hush for a second.
No, I love it. I think that's a great synopsis. Dan, do you have any questions or comments on that one?
No, I mean a lot of what you talked about, and we're in alignment on trying to make natural bodybuilding better, more entertaining, and give it the platform it deserves. So, we're doing it from a slightly less eccentric avenue than you are, but we appreciate what you're doing. So, close this out. Where can people find you and follow you along and see how your season goes? And you're kicking off this weekend.
Well, I pretty much run everything just off Instagram. So it's retro underscore Lord underscore, because some inactive profile took the actual name. But I'm not going to pay that monthly subscription for verification. It's not a real check mark. But yeah, that's where people can find me and what's going on with my prep and whatever I post. Should be exciting. We have a long, long year. Longest prep of
Mhm.
my life, 37 weeks, I believe. So it's a fat one. There'll obviously be some breaks with nutrition and stuff, but long season. Show in June, Mr. America October, Natural Olympia November is if everything goes to plan.
We will see you at the Mr. America.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really looking
Cool.
forward to seeing everyone.
Mhm.
Thanks for coming
So,
on, Silas. And if
absolutely.
you like this podcast, let us know. What's everyone's thoughts on how we can make natural bodybuilding great.